Questo episodio è sponsorizzato da Scalable Capital, l'app che ti permette di iniziare a investire in modo semplice, sicuro e conveniente. Today we're talking about opportunities e di come prendere il controllo del proprio futuro finanziario con Scalable, il partner per investire in modo smart, safe and convenient. Scalable vanta oltre 1 milione di clienti e offre una piattaforma sicura e regolamentata che permette di diversificare i propri investimenti in azioni, ETF e fondi. E si può iniziare anche con solo €1. Why is it crucial to start investing today? Per diversi motivi. Per contrastare l'inflazione, garantirsi una pensione dignitosa o per obiettivi a lungo termine, come ad esempio l'educazione universitaria dei figli o semplicemente per costruire un futuro finanziario più sereno. Con Scalable puoi vedere i tuoi risparmi crescere nel tempo, taking small but significant steps. In più troverai sul sito una sezione dedicata all'apprendimento dei principi base degli investimenti. So, take control of your financial future. Vuoi saperne di più? Visita il link in descrizione. Remember, with Scalable, investing is for all. Welcome to a new episode of Praticamente Inglese. Today we have a special guest, an expert, let's say, in finance and accounting, who will help us understand and improve our knowledge of key terms and expressions in accounting. That's the idea. This episode will be particularly useful for all our listeners who want to get a better understanding of this essential business concept related to finance and to accounting. So, welcome to Andrea Voicu. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for the invitation. How are you, Mattia? Everything okay?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for being with us. It's great because I said to my audience, okay, let's get back to interviews. So you should be the first one of this new series. I don't know how many people I will be able to find online around the world, but you are definitely the first one of this new season of interviews.
And happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
So we prepared together a few terms related to finance and accounting, and I'm very curious to know about it a little bit more. So, for example, in your list, I see something that is called GBS or SSC. What about those terms?
So generally speaking, as I work for a big enterprise, usually the big enterprises always have a global business services, or as was called in the past, the shared service center. What they actually do is just following the accounting purpose in order to make sure that everything has been reconciled in order to do the presentation of the incomes and the outcomes and whatever comes into the company, profit and loss inside the declaration that they have each type of year.
Okay, that's interesting. So GBS stands for Global Business Services.
Yes.
And SSC?
SSC stands for Shared Service Center. So usually in the past, I'm talking about the years 19 and 2000. Usually there were the years where they was called Shared Service Center. They were very small. Right now, if you think about global business services, you think about big corporate offices where they do centralization of most of the activities that they have in accounting in different areas of the world, basically. Mm-hmm. And they try to have everything centralized in that specific area.
Okay. Nice. Very well explained, I would say. But then you put on the list, procure to pay.
Exactly. Because then, of course, as I was saying, is related to accounting. As you know, there are a few parts of the accounting that are related to payments, incomes, taxes, payrolls, whatever it comes to accounting, right? So every single GBS has internally a few teams that manage specifically a few specific flows. So let's say also the GBS purpose of itself is to be very specialized. So the employees in those types of GBSs are actually very specialized on specific type of flows. Mm-hmm. Can be, as you were saying, procure to pay, that are flows related to invoice postings and related to vendors' flows themselves, but can also be related to other type of teams that you can see order to cash that is related to customer incomes that are coming inside the company, or tax. Tax is a team that works definitely on the taxes, on the taxation related to the whole world. So they also have expertise on the legislation that it comes for those sides. But then you can also have teams related to book to report that are the ones that, generally speaking, just to give a clear idea in a simpler way, they are just putting together all the activities that these other teams are doing in order to create the balance of the company itself.
Perfetto, adesso però la diciamo un po' in italiano perché se no ci perdiamo un secondino. Cioè, il procure to pay sarebbe, a occhio, il processo che va dall'acquisto, giusto, al pagamento, no?
Esatto.
Questo sarebbe, giusto?
Sul fornitore, esatto.
Ok, pagamento al fornitore, ok.
Sì.
Invece l'order to cash è il processo, diciamo, di
trovare clienti, quindi di conseguenza gestire tutti gli incassi da parte dei clienti.
Ok.
E il contatto con i clienti, che se tu hai anche un business retail, ovviamente sono anche gli ottici stessi degli store con cui lavori.
Ok, invece il book to report
È invece quel team che si occupa del bilancio finale, quindi loro stirano giù il bilancio sulla base di quello che questi altri team fanno, ma insieme anche al tax, che anche loro ovviamente pagano le tasse, vengono inserite nel bilancio e fanno parte di tutta la stesura.
Wow, that's incredible. So we discovered a few new terms today. So procure to pay, order to cash, book to report, and then of course you mentioned about taxes, right?
Exactly.
So this is like an office. This is in a big company. The tax is just the tax office, let's say, kind of, right?
Usually in a company, you will have a lot of people working for the flows that are related to procure to pay and order to cash because they are big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Procure to pay especially because if you think about how many flows you may have in a big enterprise related to vendors, so contact with vendors, vendor payments, everything that is related to it, they are very big. When you think about the tax department, they are a very small number of people,
Mm-hmm.
but they're very concentrated. Also because if you think about the tax and the legislation, when you try to have everything centralized, you may also need some external people to be supporting on the local legislation itself.
Yeah, of course, because each country has their own
Yes.
compliance with tax and payments and deadlines and so forth, right?
Exactly. But the nice thing about having a department that tries to centralize as much as possible from all over the world is that you literally can find in the same office people that come from all over the world because they also try to have, right, the knowledge of the language and the local legislation coming with the people coming from those countries.
So, for example, in your office, how many nationalities do you have there?
Very different ones. I cannot actually count them.
Okay.
I cannot actually count them.
That makes sense. That's beautiful, no? To be in an environment, no, with so many people from different countries, different cultures, right?
Yes, that's definitely incredible. It's something that it really made me feel in a big environment. You know, like usually you think about an office in Italy and you think, okay, will only be related to Italian legislation, accounting. Maybe people will think, you know, accounting, it's boring, nothing interesting. But when you think about a company that has an office like this, that is multicultural, that has so many possibilities of knowing anything about the outside,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it just opens your mind. So you feel like you're part of the world, even if you stay in a small town in Italy.
Yeah, that's really nice. Let's get back to our list. Now, something that should be easy to understand, I don't know, but maybe you can explain me, which is credit and debit.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mattia, are credit and debit?
Okay, so credit is like an entry, no?
Exactly.
That increases your
portfolio, whatever you have in your pocket, right?
And a debit.
A debit is something that you need to give to someone. Do you need to pay a rent, Mattia, in your life? Do you need to pay an invoice? Do you need to go to the shop?
Yeah.
So whatever you need to pay for, it's a debit at the end because you will have to get out the money from your pocket.
So this is like something that decreases your asset, let's say.
Exactly.
No? And the credit is increasing your asset.
Yes.
No? Okay. So credit and debit.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was thinking about, do you know the difference between a credit card and a debit card? And is it something related to these things?
So they are similar. At the end, they are called in that way because it's very simple to think about it, right? So credit card is something that it gives you the money, but you are borrowing it to do something with it, right? So at the end, it's an income that is coming on your side, but at some point you will need to pay it. While a debit card is the one that is getting the money that you already put it on it, and it's giving it outside as you need to, right? So you're using it at the supermarket, you're using it for e-commerce payments, whatever you may need in your life, right?
So we can say that when you use the debit card, you're not in debt. When you use the credit card, you are in debt with your credit card company.
So usually when you think about credit and debit, this is the tricky part. You always need to see from which side you look at the credit and from which side you look at the debit, because it's always different depending on which part you're looking, you or the bank in this case of the cards.
I definitely understand now. And that another thing very interesting, I'm very interested about this, and you put it on the list, both of those terms, is one is invoice and one is receipt. Now, of course, invoice, no, è quella che noi chiamiamo fattura, and receipt è quella che noi chiamiamo ricevuta, giusto?
Correct.
But, for example, I remember when I was in the UK, it was not so different, let's say. Receipt, invoice, it doesn't really matter too much. In Italy, is more important because the receipt is like lo scontrino, no?
Yes.
Mettiamola così. Invece the invoice, la fattura che poi io erogo, adesso da noi sono anche fatture elettroniche, esatto, rispetto magari ad altri paesi che sono ancora cartacee, no? Però non so, a livello internazionale non hai notato pure tu che spesso questi due termini, magari non nel tuo campo che è molto settorializzato, però receipt, invoice, it's kind of the same.
Yes, they're always misunderstood by each other. But usually when I have to deal in accounting with people that are coming from the outside, don't know about it, they usually misinterpret them. So they ask for a receipt, but they actually wanted the invoice to double check, or they want the receipt, but at the end they were talking about an invoice. So it's really complicated. At some point, these two are also sometimes misunderstood with the remittance. So there is another third term that can be misunderstood. So let's go through them. Generally speaking, when you think about accounting, the invoice is something that the vendor or whoever you have a debit to will issue against you in order to have a payment coming at some point. So they will have a payment term, whatever will come out. So at some point you will need to pay. So the invoice is something that you need to pay. The receipt, it's something that the vendor will give to you in the moment that you have paid. So you go to the shop, you get the receipt, right? You pay online, you get the receipt. That's the receipt. It's something that proves the fact that you have paid something. But then there are the remittances. The remittances, it's something that usually if you are a vendor and you don't find, for example, a payment on your bank account, but someone told you that you have been paid, you want to have it. It's the remittance comes directly from the bank. So it's usually something that you can provide to the person that you have a debit to in order to show them that actually, yes, I paid you. So just wait a few days, the bank will give you the money.
So I'm proving that I paid.
Exactly. So it's similar as the receipt, but it's in another sense. It's something that I'm providing the vendor to see that I'm paying it, while the receipt is something that, generally speaking, the vendor will provide to me to show that I have done my work.
So when for example, when you make a mistake, let's say, related to an invoice, you do a credit note, right?
Exactly.
Quella che noi chiamiamo una nota di credito, right?
Esatto. So usually maybe that sometimes a vendor or provider that you have may do an invoice that is wrong. They understand that is wrong before you do the payment, so they can create a credit note directly in the system that they use usually from the external provider to just do a credit note for the difference, or even a credit note that close that invoice and they create a new invoice with the right amount. It's up to them. But yes, the credit note can be used, let's say, when a vendor does a mistake, called mistake, in an order that he didn't provide you the right amount to be paid, or payment terms, or whatever. Even the IBAN was wrong, anything that may be wrong on the invoice.
So then when you have salespeople in your company, you have also travel expenses. mainly for
wow.
sales department, but it doesn't really matter the department.
They may be also for the employees.
Yes, in general for the employees, but I'm thinking about someone that is traveling around the country, the world, whatsoever. I'm always thinking about the sales team, no, that they have a lot of travel expenses. So do they give you the receipt, all the receipt and invoice that they get around the world, and then you just reimburse them, kind of, right?
Yes. So usually what they do is they really need to keep invoices or receipt, depending on what the provider will provide them, and lend it back to the company if there are expenses that the company will reimburse in order to be double checked and then be reimbursed. So yes, the travel expenses, as they are seen, you're right, are usually from the people that are traveling.
Right. And then, for example, in Italy, no? Adesso parlo in italiano. In Italia, quando tu chiedi un rimborso per una spesa fatta per il viaggio di lavoro, in Italia ti chiedono, adesso non so se tu sei molto international, no? E quindi, però in Italia ti chiedono spesso una fattura all'azienda che tu paghi con i tuoi soldi. Io ricevo la fattura e ti ridò i soldi che hai speso per conto mio. E invece magari lo scontrino che non dice niente, perché è un semplice scontrino che avrei potuto trovare anche in mezzo alla strada, non so se questa cosa funziona anche a livello internazionale o è molto italiana questa cosa qui.
Dipende secondo me dalla grandezza dell'impresa. Perché più l'impresa è grande e più vorrà accertarsi che le spese aziendali siano sul conto dell'azienda e le spese personali vengano rimborsate alla persona dall'azienda.
Ok.
Quindi potrebbe anche essere che quella fattura di cui parli tu in un ambiente molto più ampio non sia richiesto, quindi la ricevuta dello scontrino
è sufficiente.
Dell'hotel vada benissimo.
Chiaro. Okay, so let's get back to our list. We have the accounting period.
Oh, well, this is something interesting. So, as we said, at the end of everything that is done in accounting, what is important at the end is to do a reconciliation, to consider an accounting period, as it's called. Accounting is really related to the accountability in the accounting. So we usually try to divide the activities that we do in accounting on specific periods. Usually they're related to months. So usually if you think about the year, you will have 12 months. Maybe you may have also quarter closures, depending on how the company is organized internally with accounting. It may also be that they just want to do a finalizing accounting period. They consider the whole year because they don't have too many flows. But usually when you think about big intercompany companies, usually they try to stick with the monthly and monthly end closure, year month closure, and as well, as I was saying, if they want to be more precise, the quarterly ones.
Right.
È notte.
Piove da ore.
Non c'è corrente elettrica.
Niente linea telefonica.
Tu sei lì, mentre centinaia di persone gridano aiuto.
E l'acqua continua a salire.
Io sono Marco Cortesi.
Io sono Mara Moschini.
E insieme vi porteremo nel vivo di uno dei più gravi disastri climatici
mai avvenuti nel nostro paese.
Questo è Fango.
Ascoltalo ora su tutte le piattaforme di podcast.
Then we have something related to payment, because I see here the payment, the advance payment, and then we have the income payment. So let us know a little bit more about those three different kind of payments.
Well, so the payment itself, it's something that you just pay. So whatever invoice you may have, travel expense to be reimbursed, you just run a payment, right? A tax payment, you just run a payment. A payroll, maybe you want your salary to be paid.
Yeah, I would say that
right?
would be fantastic, no?
Right. And then you have the advance payment. So it may happen that you may have some specific types of providers that maybe they're related to marketing, maybe they're related to IT. Those are, let's say, the critical parts of the processes that usually have to have an advance payment. So usually instead
quello che noi chiamiamo acconto, the advance payment è quello che noi chiamiamo l'acconto, no? Quando chiudiamo un
è
contratto.
un acconto basato su una proforma, quindi prima della prestazione io faccio già il pagamento e poi mi aspetto che la prestazione mi arrivi. Quindi ti prendi quel rischio, ma è un accordo che tu hai già col fornitore, per cui farai l'anticipo e poi ti troverai il risultato.
Chiaro. Invece the income payment.
Now, it's on the other way around. So it's something that is coming back to your pocket.
Okay.
So it's usually a payment that may come back from a customer or whatever is coming into your pocket.
Right. And then you need to reconcile the payment, right?
Exactly. So every time you come to that, then you go to a reconciliation. Usually we call it accounting reconciliation or bank reconciliation, because at the end of the day, at least in this period that we use the banks to do transactions. So we talk about bank reconciliation to just look about our bank account, bank statement, that is just the flows, what happened in the month, in the year, whatever is there, and try to reconcile it to understand how much money do we still have, how much money we are still waiting for, and as well to understand in the month if everything was accounting posting done. So everything was literally put it into the balance in the accounting systems, because it's also important to have everything noted in the accounting system.
Right. And then we have the payroll. I used to be in a place where the payroll was very high.
Lucky you.
Yeah. I mean, not for me, in general, for the company. The payroll, someone was concerned about the amount, the average payroll of all the people working there, because the payroll is?
Well, it's your salary, or well called in Italian, how do you call it?
Il busta paga.
Stipendio. Stipendio, busta paga,
Stipendio,
esatto.
busta paga. No, però il payroll account, no? Non account, cioè la persona che si occupa di payroll è quello che da noi sarebbe il consulente del lavoro, no?
Sì, che nelle grandi aziende in realtà è gli human resources.
Sì, ed è diciamo la persona che si occupa di stipendi di tutto il personale dell'azienda, no? Giusto?
Esatto, quindi controlla le presenze, controlla quanti giorni si dato in ufficio, quanti giorni di ferie, e in base a quelle che sono le varie importi che tu hai, poi ti fa il pagamento. Quindi sì, ti arriva la busta paga, che poi nell'effettivo è il tuo pagamento del salario dovuto.
Nel contesto internazionale europeo, diciamo al di fuori dell'Italia, quello che da noi è il consulente del lavoro, che spesso è una figura cruciale per tante aziende, viene meno, diciamo, e molte cose vengono fatte internamente all'azienda stessa?
Esatto, di solito si cerca di avere comunque un sistema interno che possa gestire tutto quello che riguarda i pagamenti dei salari, quindi hai dei team dedicati, proprio un team dedicato, come dicevo prima, che è l'HR, quindi le risorse umane, che si occupa proprio di questo tipo di attività. Poi ovvio, se ci dovessero essere criticità, ci sono sempre i consulenti da consultare, ma si cerca sempre di gestire in casa.
Chiaro, sì, ricordo questa cosa. And then we have the fees.
Well, those are the things that no one likes, right?
Yeah.
So they are not real payments. They are something that are related to having a bank account. So you may also have seen that if you have a bank account, you need to pay the fees, the interest, depending on how long is your period of keeping the money in the bank, how many transactions you do. You may even need to pay fees on the transactions themselves, right?
Yeah.
If you go abroad and you need to pay in another currency, they will put you also the exchange rate and the fees.
Yeah, for example, if you do a bank transfer, no? Un bonifico.
Also, you will need to pay.
You pay €1 of fee, right?
Depending on the bank, yes. The fee may be different, but the idea is exactly that one, yes.
Okay.
Those are money that you will never see back, basically, are just losses.
Yeah, it's
no
true.
one will pay them
It's true.
back.
Definitely. And then, of course, we have the bank statement, which I should say, because you didn't put any description, you just gave me the terms, right? So I think the bank statement is l'estratto conto, no? Quello che noi chiamiamo estratto conto.
Esatto. Is the estratto conto. So as I was saying before, the idea is to have a bank reconciliation based on the bank statement. So you look at the transactions that are on the bank statement and you expect to have them posted in the accounting as well. To have them reconciled in order to have everything into the balance.
In fact, the term next to it is bank reconciliation that we already anticipated a few minutes ago, right?
Exactly. So you just do the reconciliation based on what you see. So on the bank statement, as we were saying before, all those transactions that we were talking about, payments, advance payments, income payments, fees, taxes, payrolls, they are all inside there.
Right.
At least once in a month, you will see them all, basically.
And then we have the budget. So tell me a little bit more about the budget, because in Italy you could say that the budget, I set a budget for something, no? Che potrebbe essere qualcosa che io metto, no? Ho un budget di spesa, no? Però in questo caso immagino a occhio il tuo budget è tipo una stima di quello che dovrebbe entrare, no? Quando parli di budget.
È di entrambe, esatto.
Ok.
Cioè, di solito, when you look at the complete year of what you need to do, you will try to see how much money you will get in and how much money you will need to get out. The idea is to never get below a certain limit, of course. And the idea, of course, is usually to use that budget, so the income that you have earned in the last years, on something that is really useful for the company. So you try to limit the usage of that budget on specific projects or whatever may come into the company that are really needed to support the employees and the users to work better in the accounting or whatever sector you're coming in. So depending on the office where you're working, etc., usually big companies try to do this, but also small ones for sure.
Right.
Because it's very important.
Yeah, of course. So deadline. I'm very familiar with deadlines. Everyone has a deadline at work.
Exactly.
No? So the sales team, the finance team, everyone has a deadline. So what about deadline in finance, in accounting?
Well, we have the deadlines that we were saying before related to the accounting period. So we need to make sure that all the accounting reconciliation is done on time. So the first deadline would be the monthly ones, then the quarter ones, then the end year ones. Then, of course, they may be deadlines related to when I need to run a payment, which type of payment I need to run when. As you were saying, I also need to pay taxes, and they have specific dates when they need to be paid. So you really need to stick to those specific deadlines in order to avoid paying more fees. Coming back to the word fee.
Yeah.
So everything is literally related. Whatever you look, you just come back to all those terms.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's great because, I mean, we touched almost, I think those are very popular terms that you use every day at work. And I think are very easy. They're not so easy to understand, but in general are very popular. So I think that's very good for our followers, listening a little bit more about more specific terms related to finance, accounting, and trying to give an explanation. But at the same time, you have also different kind of ways of saying things, no? Dei modi di dire, no? Mi hai dato un po' qualche indicazione su quelli che sono i modi di dire all'interno del tuo contesto, no? Ce ne vuoi dire alcuni e quali sono quelli più usati, quali sono quelli classici, insomma, quelli che potremmo sentire in altri dipartimenti in giro per il mondo?
Well, if you work in accounting, I'm sure that you will always listen to the phrase that the manager will come out and say, if you have, in any case, manage and close the end month closure. Okay. Because as we were saying, those deadlines are really, really important. So usually every month it's looking forward. Whatever you do during the month, the manager always look forward to arrive to the annual closure that you tell them, I closed it, so they can double check whatever was done, see what are the incomes, what are the payments that have been done, etc., check the cash flow and see how the company is going. So it's very important to stick to those deadlines. So they will always come to that. As well, they may also end to call, depending on how big the company is and how they do reconciliation, also the quarter end closure. That is usually more important than the monthly end closure. And then, of course, as we were saying, the year end closure, because it really goes to your balances. It really needs to be correct. Right. In order to show what the company has done in the whole year to all the world when you then publish all the numbers, right? So it's something very, very important. And then every time I listen to the same sentence, which is, this is a teamwork. Exactly. So usually you can think about accounting as people that work with numbers, right? So you think, oh, so boring. They always stay in front of their computer. They don't talk between each other because they need to deal with numbers. At the end, it's not really like that, because as we said, the Global Business Services is actually an office that is really specialized. So has people that are specialized in different types of activities. In order to have the balance at the end closed, the people will need to work together. So whatever the payment team has done, if they didn't do it correctly, they would need to double check with the book report what happened, or with the income team, so the O2C team, what happened. So in any case, all the teams will need to be working together. So usually it's a very important thing that managers always stress on, because it's really, really crucial for an office like that, especially for the fact that it's very specialized, to be all a team and work together in order to arrive at the end at the balance of whatever the company has done during that month.
Right. You remind me of my time in London, and also I was very close to the finance team. They were working hard, and I remember they were listening to music while they were, typing all day long. But at the same time, they were very close as a team, because as you said, you have deadlines, you need to, you have strict deadlines. Everyone is waiting for your numbers, to do their job, to plan in advance on things related to budgeting and all those kind of things. So it's a very crucial role, I would say. But, this podcast is all about English at work, English for business, let's say. But at the same time, can you share 3 advice for my audience to how to improve their English? What worked for you?
So what really helped me a lot was actually not really school learning, because, like at school, you have the teacher, you have a lot of kids around. They don't really focus on each single person. So you may have something that you never learned at school. What really helped me was actually having the possibility to move abroad for a period. I stayed for 7 months in the UK. That was really an open-minding for me, because I could have the possibility, because I also decided to be radical in my choice. So I decided to go and live inside a college with UK people, because I really wanted, and this is an advice that I really want to bring to the people, to stick with the people that were living in the country only, without having other people that talk my language.
No Italians around.
Yeah. I didn't want to say that. But if you stick with Italians, you will always speak Italian. And wherever you go, you will always stick to that language. And it will be quite impossible to learn new languages. So my advice would be literally stick with the people that are from the country that you want to learn the language from. They will be the only ones. You will struggle for sure. In UK, I struggled a lot. They speak very, very fast. They use the different accents depending from the areas that they come. But at the end, I came back after 7 months with a lot of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you cannot feel it, because now I'm still living in Italy. I came back in 15 years ago. But the idea is that when I was there and I arrived back to Italy, my way of speaking, the accent and the way I was speaking very, very fast was literally as they were speaking, because I had the chance to talk with them. Then you can see, I come back to Italy and, you get back to the usage of how to put the words, how slow you should talk in order to...
But you're still practicing, of course, as you work for a big company, international company, of course, you still practice English every day, right?
Yes. So generally speaking, if you work for a big company, English will be the first language that they use, if they are based in countries that are really using a lot of English.
Right.
I cannot say other companies. It may be that maybe French people will want to stick to French and they will want all the others to learn French. I don't know. But when it comes to Italy, usually when in Italian companies international, what I've seen is that they really stick to English as the first language to talk with everybody from the outside. So it's very, very important to also have a knowledge on that, as I was saying, as my really personal advice, I would literally, if you have the chance and you have the budget,
yeah, of course,
go outside.
But for example, if I want to go abroad, I want to work for a company, I don't know, in France or in England, or what would be your advice? So I'm not in the position to move right now, but I'm still in Italy. I really want to go. There's an opportunity, maybe not now in 6 months, to work for, I don't know, the international branch of my company, whatever. What would you suggest? What we can do here in Italy? What would be your suggestion?
My suggestion would be then to find a person that has the knowledge on that language, especially in the sector that you want to go and work for, and have some chit chat.
Right.
It's very important. You don't need to be perfect at the beginning, but talking with a person that already has that knowledge and the accent and knows some words would actually help you a lot before going to work in that country. So if you don't have the chance to move there and to learn it in the country, and you need to learn from Italy, find someone that can give
practice the conversation, the proper conversation.
Yes.
Open your mouth, as I always say.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely. That's the best thing. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that say that also movies can help, but at the end, you don't speak with the people that are at the TV. So at the end, you listen to their accent, you can get the accent, you can get some words, but you will never be able to speak with someone personally to see if it actually works.
That's great. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing your expertise in finance and accounting with us today. This has been incredibly informative. And I'm sure our listeners have gained valuable insight into finance and accounting terms. So thank you very much for being with us, being with me. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. It's the very first interview after a long, long time. So thank you very much, Andrea. And with you guys, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you, Mattia. Bye-bye.
Ciao, sono Andrea Daniele Signorelli. Se sei interessato al mondo digitale, all'intelligenza artificiale, ai social network, alla realtà virtuale e aumentata e all'impatto della tecnologia sulla società, hai trovato il podcast che fa per te. Si chiama Crash, la chiave per il digitale. Lo trovi su tutte le piattaforme di podcast. Insieme cercheremo di capire qual è il futuro che ci attende.
Segui i podcast di Voice sulla tua app di podcast preferita. E se sei un utente Prime, ascoltalo senza pubblicità su Amazon Music.